Football conversations both on and offline are full of comparisons. These arguments will never end and we actually don't mind them, but some of them are just too disrespectful. So what is the most disrespectful comparison in football? We'll let you pick from these 10. We'll start with the one that started and ended in the just concluded season, Haaland versus Núñez. Manchester City and Liverpool have been the biggest clubs in England for some time now, and it's only normal that they're compared to each other in many ways. So when each club signed a new striker in the summer of 2022, people started comparing them, but we should have all known that that was an abomination. These two players had never been comparable at any point in their careers, and it was made obvious in their first season in England. While Haaland finished as Premier League top scorer with a record-breaking 36 goals, Darwin Núñez finished with just 9, 2 fewer than a 31-year-old Roberto Firmino, who obviously played far fewer games. Honestly, that argument should never have seen the light of day. Now, some of you might want to argue this one because of where your loyalties lie, but the truth is that the whole Pep versus Klopp comparison is very disrespectful. We get it, they're the coaches of the two biggest clubs in England over the past 5 years, but Pep is still obviously miles clear of Klopp, however you want to look at it. And if you doubt that, listen to this. Klopp has won 12 trophies in his managerial career. That's if we are including the Community Shield. Meanwhile, Pep has won 11 league trophies alone in his managerial career. Also, Pep has won 3 Champions League titles and lost just 1 final, while Klopp has won 1 Champions League title and lost 3 finals. You can say whatever you want to say about Pep and how much backing he has had at the different clubs he has managed, but the truth is that his achievements put him far and above any other coach from this generation. The man is the only coach who has done the European treble 2 times. It's actually disrespectful to suggest he's on the same level as Klopp. And you know what else is disrespectful? The Mbappe versus Rashford comparison back in the day. When they were both coming up, people had the guts to compare Kylian Mbappe to Marcus Rashford. Come on. And this is no disrespect to Rashford at all, he's a fine player, but you see Kylian Mbappe, no one from his generation is anywhere near him. The boy is a generational talent, and what he's able to do with the ball at his feet is just incomparable. Thankfully, the comparison died a natural death, as everyone was able to see that there's no comparison there at all. But the truth is that it should never have even existed in the first place. And you know what else should never existed? The Hazard versus Neymar comparisons. Now, don't get us wrong here, Hazard is a very, very talented player and was unplayable in his prime, but Neymar Jr. is just next level. The Brazilian easily floors the Belgian in almost every department. Skills, productivity, achievements, influence, street cred, memorable games, longevity, Ballon d'Or rankings, you name it. Hazard will always be remembered as a Chelsea legend, no doubt, but Neymar will be remembered as a football legend. One of those guys who would have won the Ballon d'Or if not for the duopoly of Messi and Ronaldo. And you know what else is disrespectful? 2 of their former teammates were often compared back then. We're talking about Ivan Rakitic and Luka Modric. After Barcelona signed Rakitic in 2014, the Blaugranas tried to create the illusion that they had gotten the better Croatian midfielder, but it was just never the case. At both club and international level, Modric was always the better player. He's easily the greatest player in the history of Croatian football. The country's incredible achievement of finishing 2nd and 3rd at the World Cup will always be seen as something Modric was almost single-handedly responsible for. And then there are the 5 Champions League titles and the Ballon d'Or that sort of put the conversation to bed. Another really disrespectful comparison between midfielders is the whole Casemiro versus Partey discourse. Shout out to Partey, but there's truly no comparison here, and it's even a little embarrassing that there was even a suggestion that these two players could ever be compared. Obviously, Arsenal fans were only trying to hype up their own, and we get that, but there has never been a time when Partey was better or even anywhere near as good as Casemiro, and we're pretty sure even the Gunners know that. Another thing we're sure Arsenal fans know is that the Martin Odegaard versus Kevin De Bruyne comparison doesn't really hold water, at least not yet. Odegaard is not a bad midfielder by any means, and he did actually have a good season, but we don't think he has yet done anything to earn being compared to arguably the best attacking midfielder in Premier League history. In 10 years, who knows? This comparison might make sense, but right now, it's disrespectful. But over in Spain, Odegaard's former teammate is the one getting the disrespect, because the whole Vini Jr. versus Ansu Fati comparison is disrespectful. Some years back, when these young players were making their way up on either divide of El Clasico's rivalry, many comparisons were made, and it seems like an obvious obvious comparison because they're both around the same age and they play on the same wing, but we should all have known that the Brazilian has always been the better player. Vini has since gone on to put it beyond doubt that he is indeed the better player. He helped Real Madrid win the Champions League in 2022 and made it to the top 10 of the Ballon d'Or rankings that year. Meanwhile, Ansu Fati is struggling for game time and is currently being benched by a midfielder at Barcelona. But you know what was even more disrespectful than that? Virgil van Dijk versus Harry Maguire. Van Dijk joined Liverpool in 2018 and totally turned their fortunes around. United saw that and went to buy Harry Maguire for an even larger amount in 2019. The fans swore he would have the same effect as Van Dijk had at Liverpool, and some even said he would be better. Obviously, that turned to be a massive lie, and a hilarious one at that. Anyone who watched them play back then would know that for a fact Maguire could never lace Van Dijk's boots, and that was a very disrespectful comparison to have ever existed in the first place. To round off this list, we have a really interesting one. Alisson versus Ederson. Come on you guys, no matter who you support, it's pretty obvious that Alisson is a better shot stopper than Ederson, and you can even tell based on who is always preferred in the national team. Ederson has benefited greatly from being in a very good team led by one of the best coaches in the world, but if the argument is strictly down to goalkeeping abilities, then surely you could never put Ederson over Alisson. It's as simple as that. Anyway, we have now given you 10 disrespectful comparisons to pick from, so go ahead and tell us which one of those is the most disrespectful comparison in football. If there's anyone you think should have been on the list, let us know in the comments. Also, we would like to know your thoughts on each of these comparisons we mentioned. Do you agree with them? Do you have counter arguments? Talk to us in the comments.